Pac-Man World 1 is not what this video is about. Pac-Man World 2 is also not what this video is about. However, both of these games are very common. They were both simplistic, linear platformers. So what happens when you decide to deviate from that?
Well, you only turned 25 once.
It just sounds so old.
I think we need to kill this guy. Well, let's see what happened with Pac-Man World 3. This game is a game that I never wanted to replay. But why? Is it because it's bad? No, not at all. This game's pretty good. I enjoyed it. So why have I never really wanted to replay this game? I always think about replaying Pac-Man World 1 and 2 all the time, but I never really considered replaying 3. I only really replayed it because of this video, and I'll probably only play it again in like 20 years when I'm in my grave. I think it has to do with Pac-Man World 3 being a completely different style of platformer compared to the first two. Pac-Man World 1 and 2 is like what I said at the start of the video. They're very simplistic, they're very linear, and of course, they're platformers. You go from point A to point B. It's pretty much a hallway. In Pac-Man World 3, it's you go to point A to point B, but instead of it being a hallway, you get a hallway sometimes, and then it leads to a big, massive open area where you explore, you fight, and you solve puzzles in, and you do that about 50 times in the game's beat. And I am not even joking or exaggerating. There's really not much variety here. All the enemies are pretty much damage sponges. They will all just try and walk up to you and melee you, or sometimes try and shoot you. But other than the models being different, they act kind of the same pretty much. The levels are also very similar to each other in theming. Like, I can just give you the name of 3 themes and it covers every level in the game. Wasteland City, Ghost Area, Mountain Temple. That's it. There are only 15 levels and you really only have 3 themings for them? This is supposed to be a game for mature audiences and you don't even have a level where the city's burning down and you can shoot people? What? I understand it's part of the tone shift they were going for, but man, couldn't you have just made it more interesting? Speaking of tone shifts, let's talk about that. First 2 games, in my opinion, were these whimsy kind of platformers, but the second you start Pac-Man World 3, it's like, I will say though, even though they changed the feel of the game, they nailed the atmosphere of the game. Like, look at this. This made me feel something. And this is just a Pac-Man game. This is making me feel something. Going along with the tone shift, my biggest complaint with this game is a part of that. And that's the focus on combat. Like, look, there's even a combo meter. And it's not even a good combo meter. Like, there's no super style and rank or whatever. Like, I can't even tell what counts as a combo. Sometimes I start up another attack and it just disappears. Like, I don't get it. Anyway, I just ignored the combo meter the entire game. The entire game is just punch enemies until they're dead or just jump on them until they're dead. Or use one of the 3 power-ups. One of the power-ups is actually kind of cool. It lets you draw a circle around the enemies, and once you do, it'll collapse and explode, and then it'll pretty much almost always insta-kill the enemy unless they're bigger or something. This next power-up is a pretty basic power-up, but it's still good. You just basically butt slam harder. The AoE around you is bigger and it does more damage. Pretty simple. The electric one though, I think this is the worst one. You kind of just walk up to people and you have to stand still or you can't aim it directly at them. And once you're shooting them with electricity, they basically stop moving and explode after a while. But the issue with this is that you're going to be fighting more than one enemy almost always. So you're just going to get attacked by another enemy while you're standing still, because if you move, you're not shocking them anymore. So I don't understand the point of this. I always just skip it and just beat them up normally. The only different thing about combat is the classic ghost sequence that Pac-Man is known for. There are only 3 types of ghosts for this one. One that just chase you around, the green one which charges you, and then the purple one, which is probably the annoying one, which shoots a laser, but you kind of jump over it. If you don't see it, you might get hit, but that's the only worry. This was a cool idea. In concept though, it just gets repetitive and it's kind of boring. To deal with them, you just find a power pellet and then eat them while they're blue like 8 times until they disappear. This happens so many times in the game, you just get sick of it after a while. The combat is probably my biggest complaint with the game. I don't think you should have made it about combat. This is a platformer. You should have put more effort into that aspect rather than just fighting. Or if you really, really wanted to put combat into a Pac-Man game, make it more interesting. Give me Devil May Cry styled combos. I have one more nitpick left about the tone shift of this game, and it's that they do this camera pan thing that just pans the camera towards the answer to a puzzle or where you have to go. And it does it a lot. And even if it's extremely obvious, it's annoying and I just want to play the game. Like, this happens so much. So let me play the game, please. But of course, to top it all off, they added voice acting, which to no one's surprise is really, really bad. Actually, it's pretty good. Like, it's actually really, really, really good. The writing is also very, very witty, and it doesn't feel like it's written for kids. It feels like it's written for the people who grew up with Pac-Man. The dialogue between characters is awesome. Like, look at this.
Uh-oh. I'm detecting a rise in energy in your sector, Pac-Man.
Details of my sector's energy should be between me and Miss Pac. Thank you very much.
Orson, what's with the weather? This looks like the end of the world.
It seems that Irwin's little siphoning experiments have been having an adverse impact on meteorological outpourings in your proximity, Pac-Man.
And what about the weather?
They even gave every character in this game such an amazing characterization that it sucks that they've pretty much thrown it all away. But now the main question comes to our heel. Why did this tone shift happen? Oh, well, time for a bit of backstory, a bit of a history lesson. This game was supposed to be called Pac-Man Adventures, but that game was scrapped. It was supposed to be a much darker game than other typical Pac-Man games. Like, even take a look at these designs. This is nothing like what Pac-Man once was. But after it was scrapped, Namco hired a British developer called Blitz Games to make Pac-Man World 3, and they took some of the designs from Pac-Man's Adventures. But then Bandai and Namco merged. This caused every single Pac-Man game in development to be cancelled. But the devs did not falter. They did not give up. They begged the newly formed Bandai Namco to let them work on the game, which they actually agreed to. But they demanded that the game be released by the end of 2005. Which gave them very, very little time to finish the game. On a tight time schedule such as that, even though I have my issues with it, and it's obviously not as good as the other games, the game was still fun and I had a fun time playing it again. When the game is trying to be a platformer, it can actually be a fun game. And now I never said the combat was bad, it's just kind of boring after a while, but other than that, it's still a pretty solid game. Like, it's not amazing, but it was still good. This game feels like Crash Twinsanity to me. If it was more complete, it would be an amazing game. Like, take the ghost mechanic, for example. In Pac-Man World 3, you can play as two ghosts, Pinky and Blinky, and their mechanics are pretty good. Like, Pinky's mechanic is for solving puzzles. You put platforms into reality and take them away, like it's a great concept. Blinky is focused on combat. He has some moves for puzzles, but it's focused on combat. These are really good designs. But why can you only play as two of them? I think it's because the game wasn't fully complete. That's the only reason I can think of. Like Crash Twinsanity, if this game was more complete, this could be a really, really good game. Like I said before, I probably won't play this game for another 20 years, but I had a good time playing it. I would recommend it to people who are fans of Pac-Man. Like, it's still a solid game. It's not amazing, but it's alright. Pac-Man hasn't had a new platform in a while now. We did get re-pac, which is cool and all, but I was hoping for more for something new. Even though I say that, I do hope they do a re-pac too, because that game kind of needs it. And I'm also never playing these games. But other than that, we really don't have much to look forward to in regards to the Pac-Man platforming scene. And I hope someday in the future, we get another Pac-Man platform. What the hell is that?
And it's moving up to a whole new world. Pac-Man World 20th anniversary.
Why does he sound dead on the inside?